The town of Elmsworth slept beneath a sky that had forgotten how to shine. Streetlights flickered with fatigue, and the stars, once proud guardians of the night, had grown dim, as if they too had lost faith in the world below. In the middle of this forgotten town lived a boy named Eli. He was small, quiet, and always carried a rusted telescope tied together with wire and hope. Most nights, he sat alone on the roof of his grandmother's house, pointing that fragile telescope toward a sky that no longer looked back. He didn't wish upon the stars. He spoke to them, whispering softly as if his voice could mend what time had broken. Eli's telescope had once belonged to his father, an astronomer who disappeared during a storm when Eli was only 6. The night before he vanished, his father had said, "The stars may fall, Eli, but it's our job to lift them back up." Those words became Eli's mission. Every evening, after finishing his homework and caring for his sick grandmother, he climbed to the roof and began his nightly ritual, cleaning the telescope, adjusting the cracked lens, and waiting for the smallest flicker in the darkness above. Sometimes he thought he saw one, just one star trying to shine through the gray. And on those nights, he'd whisper, "I see you. Don't give up." One cold evening, as the wind bit through his jacket, Eli heard a faint humming from below. He leaned over the rooftop edge and saw a girl walking down the empty street, holding a lantern that glowed softly with blue light. Her name was Mira. She had moved into the house across the road just a week ago, and unlike everyone else in town, she never hurried indoors before dark. When she noticed Eli watching, she smiled and called out, "You're the boy who talks to stars, aren't you?" Eli froze. No one had ever said it aloud before. He nodded shyly. Mira lifted her lantern. "Then maybe I can help you fix them." Myra's lantern wasn't ordinary. Her father, an old mechanic, had built it using fragments of glass from meteor showers and pieces of old watches, time and light woven together. She explained that every few decades, stars burned out because the people who watched them stopped believing. "If we can make them remember," she said, "they'll shine again." Together, Eli and Mira began collecting star fragments, tiny bits of glass, light, and memory they found in forgotten corners of town. They fixed the telescope, attached the lantern to its base, and created something neither science nor magic could explain. They called it the Reacher, a bridge of light that could send hope into the heavens. The night they finished building the Reacher, the wind was still and the sky was pitch black. Eli aimed the telescope at the darkest point above the horizon and whispered, "For you, Dad." Mira turned the lantern's dial, and the entire roof glowed with silver fire. The air trembled. The telescope began to hum, and then, one by one, tiny sparks bloomed across the sky like flowers remembering spring. The first star flickered to life, then another, and another, until the heavens began to shimmer again. Eli's eyes filled with tears. He wasn't just seeing stars. He was seeing memories, his father's laughter, his grandmother's lullabies, every promise he'd ever whispered into the night. Word spread quickly. People who hadn't looked up in years began climbing their rooftops. Children pointed at constellations they thought were myths. Old lovers stood hand in hand, recognizing the stars from their youth. The mayor even declared it the night of return. But for Eli and Mira, it wasn't about fame, it was about faith. They didn't need to prove anything. They only needed to remind the world that the universe listens when you speak with kindness. As weeks passed, Mira began growing weaker. The lantern's light, she revealed, was powered by her own heartbeat. Each star restored took a piece of her strength. Eli refused to let her continue, but she smiled faintly. "Don't you see, Eli? You fix the sky. Now I just need to make sure it stays." One last night, she climbed the roof beside him, holding the dimming lantern. "Promise me," she whispered, that even when I'm gone, you'll keep fixing what's broken." Eli wanted to say yes, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he reached out and took her hand. Together, they turned the lantern one final time. The lantern burst into brilliant light that painted the town in silver and gold. And when it faded, Mira was gone, leaving behind only her lantern and a single, newborn star shining brighter than all the rest. Eli pointed his telescope upward, trembling, and saw it, the star that pulsed like a heartbeat. He whispered through the night, "Thank you for believing." And in that moment, the entire sky answered back. Years passed. The boy became a man, and Elmsworth became known as the town that healed the stars. Children told tales of the girl with the lantern and the boy with the telescope. Eli still climbed his roof every night, though his hair had turned to silver. And as he looked through his telescope, he smiled at the brightest star, the one named after the girl who once helped him fix the broken sky. He whispered softly, as if she were still listening, "Some stars fall so others can rise. And you, Mira, you made the whole sky remember how to shine." Decades later, Elmsworth had changed. The cobblestone streets were replaced by smooth paths, the rooftops now covered with flowers instead of dust, and the sky. Oh, the sky never stopped shining. But in one small corner of town, hidden behind ivy and thyme, stood the old house where Eli once lived. Its roof had caved in, its windows whispered with the wind, and beneath it, in a forgotten chest, lay Mira's lantern, dim, but still warm. One summer evening, two children, siblings chasing fireflies, wandered into that old yard. The boy tripped over the chest, and when he opened it, a faint blue glow touched their faces. "What is it?" the girl whispered. The boy smiled. "A light that remembers," he said, without knowing why. When they carried it outside, the lantern flickered alive, as if recognizing their innocent wonder. That night, the children climbed their rooftop, the same way Eli once did. The boy placed the lantern beside him and pointed at the telescope his grandfather had left behind. It was old, cracked, and still marked with a small engraving, "To reach what's lost." He aimed it toward the sky and gasped as the lantern pulsed, syncing with the stars above. The girl, her voice trembling with awe, said, "It's like it's talking to them." And maybe it was. The reacher had never truly died. It had just been waiting for new hands, new hearts, and new hope. The stars shimmered in reply, and among them, one pulsed brighter, the same one that bore Mira's name. It was as though she was smiling, watching the children carry forward what she and Eli had begun. As the town slept, words began to form among the constellations. Not words anyone could read easily, but shapes and lines that told a story. A boy, a girl, a lantern, a telescope. The children watched, feeling the story more than seeing it. "Do you think they were real?" the girl asked softly. The boy nodded. "If they weren't, then who's writing that?" The light shimmered again, gentle, guiding, eternal. And for the first time in years, a new star appeared, small and shy but burning with fierce purpose. Somewhere far beyond time, Eli smiled. He had finally fixed all the broken stars, and in doing so, ensured they would never break again. The next morning, the town awoke to find the sky more brilliant than anyone could remember. Reporters came, scientists debated, poets wrote, and children pointed with joy. But those two siblings knew the truth. It wasn't science or luck. It was a promise kept. Every night after that, they climbed to their roof with Mira's lantern and whispered into the night, "We'll keep fixing what's broken." And when the stars answered, because they always did, they could almost hear a familiar voice whispering back through the light, soft as dawn, "Then the sky will never forget you." Many years later, long after the children had grown, The lantern found its way to the town museum, resting beneath a plaque that read, "The boy who fixed broken stars, and the girl who taught him how." Visitors stood silently before it, feeling something they couldn't explain. A pulse, a warmth, a call to look up again. Outside, the stars over Elmsworth blazed brighter than anywhere else in the world. And if you listen closely, on the quietest nights, you can still hear two voices echoing between them. One of a boy, one of a girl, forever whispering across the sky. Hope isn't found in the stars. It's what makes them shine. Long after the museum closed each evening, the janitor, a quiet old man with silver hair and gentle eyes, would stop by the lantern's display case before locking the doors. His name tag read E. Hartwell, but few knew that the E once stood for Eli. Time had softened his body, but not his gaze, and each night he still carried the same habit he had as a boy. He looked up. He would polish the glass case, nod at the plaque, and whisper, "You're still here, Mira." The lantern would answer with a faint, steady flicker, as though it recognized the sound of the voice that once called the stars home. One evening, a young apprentice working at the museum noticed the light move and asked, "Sir, why does it glow when you speak to it?" Eli smiled, the corners of his eyes creasing with stories untold. "Because it remembers kindness," he said softly. "Light always does." Then, with a small chuckle, he added, "And maybe it knows I still have work to do." The following winter came early that year. Snow blanketed Elmsworth, and the night skies were clearer than ever before. Eli, feeling his years catch up to him, climbed the hill behind the museum, a place few visited anymore. He brought with him the telescope, now restored, and Mira's lantern, borrowed just for one last look. The climb was slow, but his heart was light. At the top, he set the lantern beside him, aimed the telescope upward, and breathed in the silence of the universe. "It's all fixed now," he whispered, his voice thin but steady. "Every star that broke, every one that fell, they're home again." The wind carried his words like a prayer. Above, the constellation that once held Mira's star shimmered brighter than the rest, as if answering him. Eli smiled, closed his eyes, and let the world fade into light. The next morning, the people of Elmsworth found the old telescope standing alone on the hill, the lantern glowing beside it, untouched by snow. In the sky above, the stars had formed a new pattern, two hands reaching toward each other across an endless sky. The town named it the Reacher. It became a symbol of hope, carved into walls, drawn on notebooks, even stitched into the flags that hung in every classroom. Teachers told their students, "When you look up, remember, it wasn't science or luck that brought the stars back. It was love that refused to give up." Generations passed, but the story never dimmed. Children grew into dreamers, dreamers into builders, and builders into skykeepers. The name given to those who tended to the observatories and kept the stars shining bright. And every year, on the night the first star was fixed, the people gathered beneath the open sky for the festival of light returned. They released hundreds of small lanterns into the air, each one a promise to repair what was broken, to love what was fading, and to never stop reaching upward. Among the crowd, an old tale was always told in whispers, about a boy who fixed the stars and a girl who taught him why. On certain nights, when the sky is perfectly still, you can still see two faint figures in the constellation of the Reacher, one holding a telescope, the other a lantern. They're not just stars anymore, they're reminders. Some say if you whisper a wish to them with your eyes closed, the stars will blink once in reply. No one knows whether it's true, but every heart that dares to believe finds the same peace Eli once did, the peace of knowing that even in the darkest night, the smallest act of love can rewrite the sky. And somewhere beyond time, two voices still echo softly among the stars. Keep fixing what's broken. Keep believing in the light. Centuries passed, and the world changed in ways Eli and Mira could never have imagined. Towers of glass reached high enough to brush the clouds, and ships with silver wings carried people beyond the atmosphere. Yet even in this age of wonder, every explorer who ventured into space carried one same mark upon their ship's hull, a tiny emblem of the Reacher, two hands forever stretching toward one another. One of those travelers, a young woman named Lyra, floated alone among the stars one silent evening. She had grown up in Elmsworth, where her grandmother used to whisper tales of the boy and girl who fixed the sky. When she was a child, Lyra never believed them. But now, gazing through her vessel's glass window at a constellation that pulsed faintly in the distance, she felt something stir in her heart. "Mira," she whispered to herself. "Eli, if you're real, show me." Outside, one star blinked, then another, and another. Within seconds, the shape of the Reacher shone brighter than it ever had before, the two figures glimmering like living memory. The ship's sensors recorded nothing unusual, but Lyra knew better. Light, she thought, was answering her. Lyra adjusted her communicator and sent a message toward the constellation, a pulse of sound encoded with her heartbeat, a message written not in words, but in rhythm and hope. The signal vanished into the black, swallowed by distance. She waited, breath caught in her chest. Then her instruments flickered. One small, deliberate pulse of light returned, perfectly synchronized to her heartbeat. She smiled through tears. "You heard me," she whispered. "All this time, and you're still listening." That night, her ship's log recorded the event under the title, "Contact from the Reacher." It would later be called the first echo of the stars, and it reminded the human race that somewhere, beyond the reach of technology, there still existed a quiet kind of magic. When Lyra returned to Earth years later, she went straight to the museum in Elmsworth. The lantern was still there, glowing faintly inside its glass case. She pressed her palm against the display and, without thinking, said, "They're still out there." The lantern flickered twice, once slow, once quick, as if to say, "We know." That night, the townspeople gathered for the annual festival of light returned. Lyra brought the lantern outside for the first time in decades. Standing beneath the endless sky, she lifted it high and whispered, "You fixed the stars once. Now let them guide us again." And as if the heavens themselves heard her call, the entire sky shimmered in reply. New constellations unfolded, bridges, lanterns, hearts, all glowing faintly blue, the same hue that had once burned in Myra's lantern. The next morning, the townsfolk awoke to find a strange pattern drawn in the frost on their windows, a spiral of stars encircling a single word, "Remember." It wasn't written by any hand, yet every person in Elmsworth felt the same quiet certainty that it was a message, an echo from a sky. From that day onward, the Reacher was no longer just a story. It became a creed. Teachers, scientists, artists, and children all carried its meaning in their own way. Fix what's broken, believe in the light. And every time someone looked up and made a wish, they swore they heard faint laughter among the stars, a boy's voice, a girl's whisper, blending together like the hum of the universe itself. No one knows when legends truly end, because perhaps they never do. The stars above Elmsworth still burn a little brighter than anywhere else, and if you walk the quiet hills at night, you might see two faint figures standing where the wind meets the sky, one holding a telescope, the other a lantern that never fades. And if you listen close enough, you'll hear their voices carried in the breeze. The stars were never broken, were they? No, comes the answer. They were just waiting to be seen. The lantern flickers once more, the stars shimmer like laughter, and the sky itself breathes. Because light, true light, never dies. It only learns how to listen. And so, the night that began with a broken sky ended with the universe reborn in remembrance. The boy and the girl became more than stars, more than stories. They became the quiet pulse of every dawn, the unseen warmth in every light that dares to rise again. Even now, when the world forgets to look up, the heavens still hum their promise softly through the dark, that nothing truly lost is ever gone, and no light ever fades beyond reach. Somewhere above Elmsworth, where the wind meets the endless sky, two souls still stand hand in hand, guardians of every dream that ever learned to shine again.